let's not make that mistake again. Maybe we can jump.
Roblox. If you've been on the internet within the last 5 years, you've no doubt heard of it. Roblox was founded in 2004 as a simple online building tool, and currently it has 85 million daily active users, with over half of people under the age of 16 in the United States playing it on a monthly basis. A lot of things have changed within the past 20, 15, or even 10 years of Roblox's history. If you were to explain modern Roblox to someone from earlier on in Roblox's history, they probably wouldn't believe you. And if you were to ask most people on Roblox today if they prefer old or new Roblox, even if they weren't around at the time, they'd prefer old Roblox. This sentiment has grown so large that even Roblox themselves embraced it with their classic event. But if you were to ask these people what made old Roblox so good, 9 times out of 10 they probably couldn't tell you. But simply looking with your eyes for 2 minutes on modern day Roblox, you can very easily see that the state of current Roblox is very, very clearly bad for a multitude of different reasons, ranging from overrated, oversaturated cash grabs, to Roblox actively stopping predator catching groups from protecting their user base. It doesn't take Albert Einstein to find out that the happy fun times with sunshine and rainbows that Roblox pretends their site is nothing more than a cheap move pulled by a cold, soulless corporate PR team trying to appeal to all the investors like BlackRock and Vanguard. And against all odds, it somehow continues to work. When they had quite possibly the biggest controversy in 20 years of existence, it looked as if their stock price was gonna tank. And then, only a month later, it was right back to where it was. Compare this to when a similar event happened in early 2022, where the stock price was seriously threatened for years, only to eventually crawl back up. Roblox has gotten to a point where they don't even have to pretend like they care about the safety of its users, let alone the actual quality of the site. They simply won't face the consequences regardless. So I think the best way to approach what makes current Roblox so unbearably bad is to first have a standard to compare it to, which would be, in this case, old Roblox, and why so many people like it, starting with the more basic stuff and going up from there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an unorganized rant. First of all, if you were to look at games made during the first half of Roblox's time with an actual fan base, you'd notice that the games were made very simple in premise, like Ultimate Paintball, Minigame World, Heli Wars, and later on games that are still popular, like Murder Mystery 2, Work at a Pizza Place, and Natural Disaster Survival. Games back then were a lot more straightforward, simple, and replayable. If you had an idea of a game and knew how to use Roblox Studio, you could make what you felt like, just for fun. Players back then didn't tend to make games for the sole purpose of extracting Robux from its players, but when they did benefit from players in their game, it was rarely to the detriment of the players themselves, as each visit a game would get, the developer would get a ticket. Whatever profit earned from the game couldn't be exchanged into real-life money, but it could be spent on promoting the games whenever a new update would come out, encouraging players to return and play some more. During the earlier days of Roblox, no one really knew what to expect from such a new site, and nobody really did for a couple of years. This would eventually lead people to throw different ideas at the wall and create a product completely different from other games of the time. This way of making games would lead to some very creative and original pieces of content, such games including Built to Survive, Survive the Disasters, and later on games like Speedrun 4, The Normal Elevator, and Prison Life took pre-existing ideas and made something entirely new and original out of them. Even if many of them weren't really good in terms of quality, they would still be fun to play and laugh at, much like it would be to maybe laugh at an extremely poor quality movie. Besides, if it was bad, people would just dislike the game and then play an actually interesting game. Even though Roblox Studio was relatively limited, it was just enough to encourage aspiring developers to get creative and make something interesting. Picture this. You've been playing Roblox for a couple of months at this point, and you decide to make a couple of rudimentary games. They end up getting about 10,000 visits each, and one game gets over 100,000 visits in less than a year. Congratulations, you now have one of the hottest properties on the entire platform at the time. You then rebrand it, and it ends up getting over 1 million visits. And by 2011, you end up getting a position as an official site administrator, and end up being the first person on the entire site to gain 10 million total game visits over all your games. Even today, in 2025, a game you've made is still being played constantly, consistently, by thousands. This is exactly what happened to a 14-year-old Luke Weber, better known by you as Stickmaster Luke. During a time when there were fewer people on Roblox, and thus fewer games, the better games tended to stick out more. You could simply build and code a game for a couple of weeks, buy an ad on Roblox, or post about it on the forums, and you'd gain a small but dedicated following as long as you cared enough to update it regularly. You may think I'm cherry-picking Luke's story, but if you were to just look at other developers at the time, you may start to notice that a lot of them started out as just another player, but ended up rising to the top. But that was just the environment created by old Roblox. One of the big driving factors of what makes old Roblox nostalgic to people was how often Roblox admins and employees interacted with the player base, and not that kind of way like they later did. For example, from 2007 to 2009, multiple different video contests were held by Roblox to see which users could make the best bloopers, movies, and music videos, the winners of which would often get their very own items. Simply put, when Roblox did events, they didn't have the interests of a giant Fortune 500 company. Rather, they set out to differentiate themselves from other Silicon Valley tech startups and make the platform more interesting for the players. A lot of Roblox's heart and soul during the time was due to John Shedletsky's time as creative director for Roblox, who was only 23 when he joined the company, so he was a lot closer to the players' age and knew what the players wanted. For April Fool's Day of 2007, they rebranded to Gooblox just because. For April Fool's Day of 2009, Shedletsky decided to add a bunch of big yellow ducks to every game, and then gave everyone on the platform a duck hat. Just because of Roblox's small player base at the time, the epic duck would remain an inside joke for years and years. Do you see current Roblox doing something like this? I didn't think so. 2009 was also the year that groups were added, which strengthened clans like Roblox Assault Team, or X-101st Legion, which organized raids entirely through player coordination. Later on in Roblox's history, they'd start doing some promotions for larger brands, but would continue to hold events where the main focus was Roblox itself, like it should be. For example, from 2011 to 2013, they held the Roblox rallies and BloxCon. You could even construe the egg hunts as Roblox focused. Simply put, old Roblox's culture was heavily focused on making the place more interesting for its player base. This point kind of builds on my point about making it big on Roblox being a tangible goal back in the day, but more so this has to do with just who got big on Roblox during the early days. People like R92, OneDev2, Lando64000, and Nicholas were just regular, everyday people you could pass on the street or sit next to in class. They were just far more real than Roblox developers today. They didn't have hundreds of employees working to make their games the most inoffensive, squeaky clean, eye-catching content possible. Or the opposite if you want to be invited to RDC. They just made games with a couple of their friends using their knowledge of Roblox Studio, either for fun or to engage with their fans more. DevX wouldn't even exist until 2013, so creators had either no monetary incentive to make games, or very little. And by the way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with making Roblox games with the idea of money, just that it shouldn't be the only thing in mind when making a game. The games themselves made by said developers weren't engineered by some shills in the boardroom looking to make as much money off of kids as possible. Now obviously there's still great independent developers out there. I for one know a few, but the difference is earlier on they could actually manage to scoop up some popularity without being foreshadowed by some Scrooge looking to monopolize the market. And those are 5 reasons I have to conclude that yes, old Roblox was better in several different aspects. And now, if you look at modern Roblox, you begin to see an image that's nearly the polar opposite of old Roblox. And it's gotten this way over only the last 10 years because Roblox has been on a downward spiral. Here's 5 more reasons why. Here's a fun thing for you to do. Remember how I said Roblox games in the 2000s and early 2010s were good and original? Well, open up the charts tab on Roblox and see how original 99% of these games are. You'd probably see a ton of cheap cash grabs all trying to steal their own little tiny modicum of success, with maybe a couple of fun games in between them. Your eyes get immediately assaulted by the onslaught of unoriginal and repetitive dross that plagues the front page. Half of these games are just grow a garden or steal a brain rot knockoffs that get tens of thousands of active players, while actually good games are getting played less and less. Who cares about the original, replayable, and fun games that millions of people grew up on? They're not meant to suck as much money and time out of children. But grow a garden? Let's promote that to the point where 2/3 of the entire website is playing that all at once. By the way, Roblox encourages these games to be made simply because they make more money from them. In fact, Grow a Garden made $12 million in May 2025 alone. This led to a snowball effect which created multiple dozen cheap knockoffs of an already cheap game. So much for powering imagination. You know how I said that in the early days of Roblox, completely original games were easy to come by? Well, not anymore. I mean, yeah, they still exist, but are overshadowed by the piles and piles of boring, oversaturated dross. Maybe you like 1 out of every 20 games on current Roblox is actually good, but don't expect anything more than that. By the way, before you point the finger squarely at Grow a Garden for quote-unquote ruining Roblox, I would once again point the finger at Roblox themselves for encouraging these kind of low-effort, mass-produced games. Even though Grow a Garden certainly didn't help the quality of these games, games like these have been prevalent for years at this point, with them getting a lot more prevalent as time went on. Given that Roblox Studio is currently a lot more advanced than it was in 2009, you'd think that would mean that more of the games would be made with higher quality. Some are, but for the most part you'd be wrong. Now, before I get comments from viewer 4167 saying that there's still good content on Roblox, I agree. But those games are gems overshadowed by a sea of coal. For every Doors or Beastworm Simulator, there's 25 more Steal a Heart mitigation type of games. There's more incentive to simply make games for the purpose of squeezing as much revenue out of players as possible today, rather than highlight the rare side of good games on this site like they used to. Nowadays, Roblox likes to prioritize the same couple of cookie-cutter template games. Who could forget such classics like My Singing Forsaken, Trade a Brain Rot, and Slap Tower. And the thing is, not only do all these games have thousands of players currently, but they also have extremely high ratings.
How do you have so many good reviews?
Shows that unlike old Roblox, when people see bad games today, they don't really care, and they play it anyways, and say that you just need to let people enjoy things. Picture this. You've been playing Roblox for nearly a decade and have made several different Roblox games with better design and gameplay than the games at the top of the site. Your most popular game has only 3,000 visits, while something like Regretavitor has that many amount of people playing it at any given time. This is the experience of one of my friends, Wonton World. Wonton puts a lot of time and effort into his games, but is practically invisible online to all but a few people who come across his game. If Wonton had been born earlier and had joined Roblox when it was only starting to get popular, he most likely would have made a couple of games that you or me would have had positive opinions on. Maybe they'd be viewed as classics. But because Wonton has no real online traction, neither do his games. I think this shows Roblox's favoritism towards the golden boys who had already had a pre-established platform that can best be seen in their removal of advertising for unverified groups or users. Unless you already had 100,000 followers on a social media platform or owned a massive game before the change, good luck trying to get anyone to play your games. You're probably gonna have to bribe David for some free tickets to Epstein Island. Most players try and become developers. Some succeed because of a game they made in 23 minutes called Grow a Tumor, or because they spam the same subspace trip mine for the 39th octillionth time. Others, however, spend weeks, months, or even a year or two painstakingly designing and scripting their games, and those, more often than not, get no traction whatsoever. The uncommon lucky ones may get a 2-week spike in popularity, only for it to die faster than RiceGum's channel. Meanwhile, 2 games with basically nothing of value end up making up over 76% of Roblox's total online player base. Why? Just because it has some bright colors and those oh so precious stud textures that a lot of people say they hate, only to turn around and use it again and again and again. Either that, or they make everything silly or quirky, simply to capitalize off of people who don't know the first thing about what made old Roblox good. But that's a whole nother can of worms which I talked about in this video right here. And by the way, you know how before I talked about how developers didn't have much of an incentive to make games other than for fun? Well, not anymore. Because even though you get money from DevX, you have to reach a goal of 50,000 Robux before that. So just pour all your time and effort into that for a year or two, and then when you attempt to exchange it for real money, you get only 175. While on the other hand, if you were to pay for 50,000 Robux, it would cost you about $500, and you're 200% upcharge.
What the hell kind of math is that?
Simply put, if you want to make it big on Roblox today, you're better off selling a kidney or investing your money into Kmart. Alright, the previous few parts of this video have been talking about problems that have to deal with the quality of the games, and how certain groups have monopolized the game market. This part right here is meant to be more serious and show what some of these groups are doing to maximize revenue. Throughout this video, you've heard me reference back to Grow a Garden and Steal a Brain Rot several separate times, and how it doesn't deserve so much success. Well, what if I told you the company that owns Grow a Garden, Dubig Studios, deserves 0 success? For some context, Dubig Studios has somewhat of a monopoly on popular Roblox games, owning 53 separate games. They usually pump out some mediocre products meant specifically for extracting as much money from kids as humanly possible, and it has worked. Dubig Studios has at least 50 different employees and is making tens of millions of dollars off of 7-year-olds who don't know the value of money. Case in point, Roblox gambling. I think anyone can agree that casinos themselves are pretty scummy businesses. They're meant specifically to prey on people hoping to get rich by chasing some far-off pipe dream, extracting every last dollar they have, while physical casinos prey on people above 21, looking to rob grandma of her retirement money before Aunt Kathy can spend it on another vacation home. However, Dubig Studios isn't satisfied with simply being greedy and suffocating and burying small game devs by overshadowing everything they do. They have to take that money from actual rugrats, which is a whole nother level of scumbaggery. Keep in mind, this happening once is already bad enough, but since the late 2010s in specific, gambling on Roblox has become far more prevalent than in earlier years. If you were around on Roblox when this happened, you may remember big games, a name as soulless as it sounds, and they were the developers behind Pet Simulator X, which lied to players about the chances of hatching certain pets in the game in hopes that they'd spend more Robux attempting to hatch them, in addition to falsely issuing DMCA takedowns towards other games for simply using square-shaped pets. And how they once started selling NFTs at an extortionate price simply for rare items in the game, this going directly against Roblox's own terms of service. And not only was all of this making Preston, the owner of big games, tens of millions of dollars, but Roblox themselves, as they take a big chunk of profit from whatever revenue is generated by games. Once again, the reason gambling is so prevalent on Roblox today is that Roblox themselves encourages it, just because it makes them more money. All roads end up leading to Roblox themselves being the cause of their problems, even if the money they earn from gambling is a mere fraction compared to the total revenue brought to the site. They're such penny pinchers that they prioritize it over the actual players that gave them everything they have in the first place. This isn't even the only way Roblox suctions up as much money from their players as possible, as seen in this video, which explains a lot of the points I've made better than I could. Roblox as a business is built off the work of other people, draining money from them to spend on absolute jokes of servers that go down every month, or installing another buffet for the moderation team to stand up for the first time in 8 hours to salivate over the pizza. Roblox and its executives live in a little perfect bubble where it's all sunshine and rainbows and absolutely nothing's wrong, ever, and everything is under control. Like Marie Antoinette or King Louis, with everyone else who somehow manages to tolerate this website in enormous 2025 being the third estate. The players are left to deal with all the problems, while the people who are supposedly in charge are probably eating lobster on a private jet on its way to a certain island. Wait a minute. That reminds me of a much worse way in which children get exploited via Roblox. Alright, this is exactly what this whole video has been building up to. Everything else in this video is just a prelude to Roblox's abysmally bad and possibly complicit moderation. Throughout the last 9 or 8 years, if one thing at all has remained consistent, it is Roblox's moderation, always letting the predators that thrive on their site get off scot-free, with a slap on the wrist being the most they'll get. The only time Roblox actually gets off their asses and takes action against these animals is when the rest of the common public finds out about it due to a news article, and they have to do damage control, if they're even bothered to do that. A prime example of this being the recent Schlepp situation, where for no other conceivable reason other than him preventing the spread of EPI, Roblox not only banned the guy running a child advocacy group under false pretenses, but sent him a cease and desist, and on the very same day had the audacity to release a post on their blog about how, quote-unquote, Roblox partners with law enforcement. And then they doubled down for weeks. Hey Roblox, you may have missed a tiny little detail. You don't do shit for law enforcement. Every single time Schlepp caught a predator, he emailed Roblox themselves all of the evidence of them being pedophiles. In some cases, Schlepp had to physically mail the evidence in binders to Roblox's headquarters, and every single time, Roblox didn't do as much as lift a finger, either because they're physically unable, encourage predators, or both. I've already talked about the many of the connections David Baszucki has to many people who are well-known Epstein associates. You actually may have heard this before because it seems Parlo and Guamgo have seen the video and have used arguments from said video. And as a little bonus to that video, the guy who wrote this pork-filled page, Matt Kaufman, has badges from Condo Games on his official Roblox account to inspect them and ban them, you may ask?
Of course not!
The games weren't banned for months after, so this 54-year-old man was playing these Condo games, which were absolutely riddled with predators, and he's Roblox's chief safety officer. Something's definitely wrong with this picture. Thankfully, this whole situation ended up getting the attention of some of the adults, and now Roblox is being sued by 3 separate states and Law by Mike, which has ended up creating one of the funniest comment sections on the planet, and has even got the attention of the LeBron James of Predator catchers, Chris Hansen. But for me to simply give you insight as to how little Roblox cares about safety on their site, not only was Schlepp banned before the 6 pedophiles he caught, but he was also banned before these 30 separate convicted pedophiles. One such instance, Owain Thomas, was 29 years old while exploiting these 150 separate kids on Roblox.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
Roblox is currently a rotting cabin, and the termites are these predators. Also, side note from one of my friends, Valerius, even before this became a mainstream problem, there were some predators on the site, starting around 2015, with one of the most notable being BuilderGirl656, Mr. Obvious, and Xbox Diamond Girl, who is a real sex offender. Speaking of Xbox Diamond Girl, even though the creature who ran that account is currently in prison, where he belongs, the account itself took over 2 years to get banned after the police busted down his door and arrested him. This is simply one of the instances where it has been continuously proven over and over and over again that what little influence the average person does have against these groomers with the report button means basically nothing to these greedy, soulless, money-hungry ghouls that control Roblox. Even if you were to combine it with the aggregate outrage of millions of players, Roblox is now so big that they don't even have to pretend to care anymore. Sure, they banned the official Teddy after inviting him to RDC, but they unbanned him a week later and included him in the Hatch event, and then waited weeks until they actually decided to do something again. In that scenario, they may have pretended to care about the safety of the players, but in reality, if they really cared, they would have never invited him in the first place. They would have banned him for that matter. Another such example of Roblox's tragedy of a moderation system was the time Dr. O'Fatnik got caught grooming a 12-year-old when he was 24. Roblox banned his account at first, and then the account which owned the group, before both being shortly unbanned. So he could still access the group funds, and had been getting paid thousands of dollars by Roblox themselves. This continued until Sega, which has absolutely nothing to do with Roblox, filed a DMCA takedown against the games. I used to believe that Roblox's moderation team was just cartoonishly incompetent. Then I assumed they were cartoonishly evil and were simply turning a blind eye for a little more money. As if they don't already have enough of that. Then it hit me like a freight train. Roblox executives are doing this simply to introduce its child player base to condo games, because they're almost certainly pedophiles themselves. Let's take a look at former Roblox admin Noda Game, who was outed for acting predatory towards kids in late 2017. He was then promptly banned and then unbanned shortly after, with his account being up to this day. Ask yourself this: if Roblox isn't doing this simply because they want to introduce kids to EPI, why else would he still be unbanned today? And just a short reminder, one last comparison between today and the old days. Former admin Scripter got permanently banned in March of 2008 for simply leaking the Sparkle feature on his YouTube channel. Compare those two violations and the severity of their punishments real quick. All in all, Roblox's current mindset is that even if you get caught, it's not illegal on their watch. Alright, this video took a lot longer than I expected it to. I wasn't able to work on it for a while because of school, but now that it's done, I hope you enjoyed it. I also plan to make a content cop of video about Parlo soon, so stay tuned for that. Also, shout out to Valerius for helping with some of the script and Vsauce's words. As always, thanks for watching.